Thank you, Nadine, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join our webinar. I am Shalon Mpasane, Customer Relationship Consultant with Yellow Seed. I just want to give you just a summary about who we are at Yellow Seed and what we do. So Yellow Seed Consulting, as it looks today, is a multi-divisional company with some critical focus areas. However, our history is firmly rooted in talent management and our love for development of people. The focus of our business today is to provide you with solutions that offer a full talent ecosystem. Maybe I can just take you through those shortly. Our diverse team of creative and learning-obsessed individuals are dedicated to effecting meaningful change within the world of work through the power of modern assessments, agile talent management, team optimization, and contemporary learning and development. And just to take you through some of our solutions within that space or some of our assessments, we offer talent development assessments, talent acquisition assessments, assessments for leadership executives. We offer you 360-degree feedback. We also support with your assessment and development centers. We support with team intervention as well, technical competencies, just to mention a few. I just want to give you an overview of what our solutions entail. Our innovative and affordable assessment solutions provide you with the insight you need to make the best HR decisions at every step of the talent management lifecycle. Within our L&D solution, we bring modern learning methods and emerging technologies together with unbridled creativity. We help develop and deploy affordable, blended, gamified learning journeys that your employees will love. Within our leadership development spectrum, we develop future-fit leaders at all levels of your organization. Our solution results in agile, capable leaders who support others to thrive in the modern world of work. Within our team development spectrum, we honestly believe that great organizations are created by great teams. So we help your team achieve exceptional results by obtaining deep insight, overcoming obstacles, and finding improved ways of working. And within our talent management, we help you drive an intentional data-driven talent management strategy through the use of tested processes and powerful tools and technology. Today, we are very lucky to have Jessica, Career Solutions Consultant from Fuel 50, to tell us more about the AI-powered opportunity marketplace, career path solution that delivers internal talent mobility and workforce reskilling. Jessica, I'd also like to congratulate you and your team for winning the most innovative HR Tech Awards this week at the HR Tech Awards. And just that's us in a nutshell. For more information about who we are and what we do, please visit our website at www.yellowseed.co.za. Alternatively, you're also welcome to reach us on our landline. That is 011 475 5393. That's 011 475 5393. And that's it from my side, but Nadine, over to you. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Shalon. Thanks for that. And yes, like Shalon mentioned, my name is Nadine Swart, and I am the Assessment Manager at Yellow Seed, and I will be facilitating today's session. Before we get right into it, I would just quickly like to mention some house rules for the session. Please keep your microphones muted throughout the presentation. It just makes it easier for us to keep the flow and consistency going. Also, if you have any questions, like I previously mentioned, please type them in the chat box and I will bring the questions to the attention of our panel members. Also, we will have some time at the end of the session for those questions. So please feel free to either send them during or afterwards when we have our session. Like I said, we like participation. That's what it's all about today. So please feel free to ask those questions. Then without any further ado, I would like to introduce our amazing panel to you all today. Firstly, I would like to introduce Prof. Lumay Kukamur, who is the Head of People Development here at Yellow Seed and an Associate Professor of Practice at Northwest University, more specifically the Workwell Research Unit for Economics and Management Sciences. She has a bachelor's degree as well as a master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology. And Lumay specializes in organizational development, talent management, leadership development, career counseling, as well as stress management and coaching. And she has over 16 years of experience within the industry. So Lumay, welcome and thanks for being here today. Next, I would like to introduce Jessica Towicks, that Shalon also mentioned, from Field 50's Career Solution. She's a Field 50 Career Solutions consultant, as well as one of the industrial and organizational psychologists. She holds a bachelor degree in psychology and a master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology. So with more than 14 years of experience, she specializes in analyzing organizations as well as their people, leadership development, and then also devising strategies to adequately recruit. So Jessica, thank you so much for your time and looking forward to having you on the call today. Finally, I would like to introduce Mahlori Malong to you today, the Head of Talent Management at Old Mutual. She holds a BCom degree in economics, business economics, and industrial psychology, as well as she is currently completing her business or a master's degree rather at the business school in the US. So quite a mouthful there, Mahlori. Well done to you. Her experience spans more than 20 years, and it's mainly in financial services. And she has fulfilled various roles within the financial, customer services, as well as human capital specialist areas. So thank you once again, panel members, for taking the time and being here with us today. We all look forward to hearing what you have to say on this topic. And on that note, today we are all here to discuss the major shifts brought about by COVID-19, which includes, and there are many, I'm just mentioning a few, leveraging modern technologies that are data-centric, artificially intelligent, and virtually delivered to enable strategic talent decisions. So many organizations are creating internal talent marketplaces to attract, retain, and develop employees. I'm sure we have all noticed this by now. And these talent marketplaces match employees to opportunities and potential roles based on their skills, interests, and then also preferences for career development experiences. So with a focus on talent marketplaces, internal mobility, and talent affiliation, this webinar will tend to explore and will aim to explore these topics. So on that note, I'm sure you want to jump into it as much as I want to. I would like to open up the floor to Lumay and Jessica for our first question and hear your inputs. Just to give us some context, what is a talent marketplace? And why has this concept become so important in the world of work right now, especially then after the pandemic that I just mentioned?
Lome, would you like to go first?
Sure, I just wanted to say, Jessica, do you want to go? Thank you, Nadine, and thank you everyone for having us. This is quite a topical, the content that we're going to share. I think for me, when I think about a talent marketplace, in essence, it's about democratizing opportunities, right? So it's a platform or a system or a process that allows, number one, people to promote their skills, their aspirations, what the employees themselves, what they find interesting and the things that are important to them, but then also matching that with tools to find mentors, find learning opportunities, recommending what assignments or gigs might be useful for them to match those aspirations and skills. So it's really that sweet spot where what the employee is looking for matches what the business is needing, and does so on a very personalized level. So it's no longer just a job posting, a one way, but it's really where both parties are able to communicate as we do, for example, with Netflix and with Uber and all of these other areas in our business, in our lives, where it's extremely personalized. I think it's probably just been some time for us to get to a point where we're demanding it in our careers as well. So Jessica, maybe you can further elaborate, but I think that's what I understand around talent marketplace.
Thank you, Lome. I completely agree. What I would add, though, is looking at all the people that we have here on the call today, is that I imagine that there's so much deep HR experience that actually many of you have been involved in a marketplace in your career and in either devising one or, you know, hoping one for your business. It's just we didn't use that name. So I see a marketplace being an evolution of what we've always been striving towards, which is connecting your people to opportunities, typically within the organization. Fuel 50 has been doing this since about 2013, and I can tell you that marketplace phrase wasn't used then. Most it was centered around career pathing and delivering an engaged employee experience. And doing those activities, like you said, Lomé, about mentoring programs, giving people career path potential to consider. And now with the acceleration of software and AI, being able to bring all this together, it's really accumulated very timely, Nadine, to the other part of your question about the pandemic, in pulling together a marketplace that's going to connect an organization where almost overnight, or at least definitely within the last 2 years, the demand is now there. So all the facets we're probably used to in HR, I think we're now pulling into one place and using AI to really allow us to sort of analyze and support across all of those different offerings in a sort of coherent way.
Yeah.
No,
Sure.
definitely. Sorry, Lomé, did you want to add something there?
Yeah, maybe just to add to the second part of your question around why, you know, why is it so important now? I think to Jessica's point, the pandemic brought about many shifts, right? It wasn't just a health crisis. There was a lot of almost complete transformation in the way that we do business, a lot of business models needing to change. And so many of our clients needing to change structures, needing to change operating models, new roles, change skills requirements, you know, rapid changes happening in the business. And so I think that's where a lot of the demand is also coming from. We need to understand what skills are we needing and how quickly do we need it, and how do we rapidly match up what we've got in the business and what the business is looking for. So what we've got in our existing employees, because that's also another trend in terms of needing to really focus on our internal employees. Many businesses had a freeze on new hiring. Many businesses didn't have the opportunity to look externally and really focusing on who do we have in our business and how do we optimize them in a better way. And also, you know, with COVID bringing up some roles that were not as needed and in demand anymore, how could we redeploy our people into other areas based on their skills, based on their aspirations? And so how do we foster that conversation? Jessica, I think that's what you were saying. We've been having those conversations all along. I think with AI and really good data analytics coming into play, and that's where this term talent marketplace, I suppose, was born, it just allows us to do it at scale and not be reliant on those actual physical conversations to be had, but being able to put the tools in the hands of the employee to drive their own careers, to drive their own trajectories, if you will, that they want to follow based on what the business is wanting. So I think it's an opportune time because of a lot of the changing needs that we are seeing in the world of work right now. And it's quite exciting because I think this is one of those technologies that's a win-win-win for everyone. It's a win for the employee. It's a win for the business that's wanting to do things at a rapid speed. It's a win for development and community upliftment. It's a win even from a diversity and inclusion point of view, because it democratizes a lot of opportunities. It's not just about who you know or who you grew up with in the business. So there's a lot of wins, I think, and that's really maybe one of the good things that came out of the pandemic.
No, and I definitely agree with you on that, Lomé. I think the pandemic in that sense helped us to fast track AI and using it. So definitely also good things coming from it. And maybe Mahlodi, you can add to the following question, where I would like to ask, what are some of these latest trends in internal mobility and the use of IA-based talent analytics that you are seeing currently in a talent marketplace, if any?
Thank you so much, Nadine. Good afternoon, everybody. Sanbona, Dumelang, Absheni, Goeiemiddag, Bonjour. I don't know which language I've left out, but thank you so much for the question, Nadine. I think one of the trends links into, for me, what Jessica and Nome has already kind of shared around the impact that the pandemic has had in terms of organizations needing to be more responsive. And so what it has also done is that it has kind of shone a light on talent mobility, and organizations are now required, and that's one of the trends I'm seeing, that organizations are now required to review the talent manager or the internal mobility practices that they have in place, if any, right? And if not, to start crafting that, because talent mobility has really become center stage. It's a priority, even at C-suite level. So it's something that, due to the fast track of change because of the pandemic, that it has kind of just lifted that up. So the trend is that it's top of mind, it's a priority. As an HR professional, if you've not done so and nothing exists in your organization, start looking at creating something. Also be clear in terms of what it is that you're expecting from talent mobility. So what are the goals that the organization wants to achieve through this? All right. It's also about, making it visible and ensuring that all employees in the organization fully understand exactly what it entails. And what it is that you want to achieve, and start also, influencing and creating the culture around knowledge sharing, skills sharing, collaboration, and not just within your team and your business unit, but starting to look at cross-functionally, how we can start exchanging knowledge and skill, so that it's not siloed and kind of just like, within the borders of your immediate environment. So that is one of the trends that I'm seeing. I think Lome also started talking about skills. So we're also seeing that, the impact skills are going to have on career and talent management. And exactly what you mentioned, Lome, earlier, in terms of fully understanding as an organization exactly what those skills are that are critical to us, being in a position to kind of evaluate where the population in the organization is and start identifying gaps. And where AI can step in and help is also in terms of, once those kind of matches have been made and gaps identified, that it can start suggesting what possible learning opportunities and development that you can go on to. And Ome, you mentioned Netflix. That's one of the things I absolutely love about Netflix. After watching a couple of shows, you get recommendations, right, in terms of based on your interests. So it's that type of shift that I see.
Yes, thanks.
Sorry, Nadine, I want to add to Matlodi. I read the other day this just a lovely picture that spoke about, in the past we were focused on career ladders, right? So a very linear way of working through our careers, and now we have career jungle gyms. So I love that picture of, it's a jungle gym. You kind of have a monkey bar, and then you hop on, off, and then you hop back in. And I think just linking on to what you were saying around skills, I think most of us have seen the move towards focusing on skills rather than linear jobs, linear functions. And it's very scary, but it's also really exciting. Because we have AI, because we have data analytics, it is quite an exciting move, because it allows us to make inferences and recommendations that we would never have considered before. You might have a really good data analyst in IT who could make an exceptional hire in your digital marketing space. Who would ever have thought? Who would make that leap? The AI data analytics functionality brings us to all of those kind of wild card options. And because, most talent marketplaces will have a really robust skills taxonomy or skills ontology that backs it, I think it's not just guesstimates, right? It's solid, data-based, it's bringing recommendations. I mean, we think about the Netflix example, if you were to log into Netflix, and even if they give you recommendations and it's completely off, you would lose your trust in that system. So it needs to be robust. It needs to really be quite accurate, but it also opens up a lot of opportunities that the individual might never have thought of, and think about, yes, that's something that I could try, and let me remain engaged, let me explore developing broader skills. So yeah, we're on jungle gyms here, not on ladders.
No, absolutely. There's something I add to that, Nome, as you were speaking. It escapes me now. Just on that, and just the skills, just building on that, is it's also going to impact how we hire, right? As well. Because if you've got a workforce plan and you have an indication of exactly where you expect to have vacancies, and you can already start looking at what those requirements are versus what you have within your internal talent marketplace, where the potential matches are, you can start, identifying and sourcing already internally, and take the process from there.
Definitely. And Lumay, I know you touched on it, a very important trend we're also seeing coming up in the workplace at the moment is data analytics. And Jessica, maybe your inputs here. What do you think the role of data analytics, are at the moment in the workplace that's truly enabling a working talent marketplace?
Thank you, Nadine. It's such a big question and such a good question for organizations to think about. So about 6 or 7 years ago, I did some research into HR analytics as HR and analytics started to be said in the same sentence. And what I'd found was that there was a lot of fear from the HR community around using analytics. And it really came down to trusting the data that they had in their organizations. We've all heard that phrase, garbage in, garbage out. And so there was a real reluctance to make decisions based on data, going back only, like I said, 6 or 7 years ago. And what we're seeing now, and Lumay and Matilda, you've completely mentioned the word skills in your answers, because it's such a underpinning element to a marketplace being as successful as it can be. And so I actually see, to answer the data question, we need to come back to the skills question. What we're seeing at Feel 50 is that we're taking our clients on a journey to become a skills-based organization. And that will make your data analytics and using your ability to use that data to make strategic decisions so much more easier and powerful, because you know how that data's come into formation. Just as an example, and those of you that have built competency frameworks in the past will recognize what I'm about to say next, but maybe by other language. But we will bucket skills in 2 types of categories: specialist skills relevant to your job today and perhaps your industry, versus your capabilities, which are transferable throughout your organization or perhaps throughout your career. And so even in HR, sharing that knowledge out to employees to let them know there's 2 types of skills. Some of your skills you can take with you in other parts of your business, whereas others will just be more relevant to that role. Some of your skills might become automated and others might become really high payoff skills. So you're actually taking your employees on that journey to understand almost, I heard a phrase earlier in the week around a skills passport. So when your employees are really invested in understanding and on that journey with you as an organization, there'll be so much more harmony at the end in terms of using the data analytics in a way that's going to be meaningful and powerful and really representing your organization.
No, definitely. I agree with that. Thank you for that. And I think you also mentioned something that I would like to touch on. We've been focusing a lot regarding the organization side, but we also need to remember that we're seeing a shift where employees are wanting to know what are the growth opportunities within the organization. And maybe, Lumay, your inputs here with regards to how do you see that play out in the workplace at the moment? So any ideas that you can share about how organizations can go about to identify multiple growth opportunities that can be offered to employees currently in the new world of work?
Thanks, Nadine. Yeah, I think there's so many that could be offered, right? There's so many opportunities that could be offered. And I think perhaps therein lies the trick here, is that if we are only focused on one type of learning opportunity or growth opportunity, we know that people learn in various different ways. Our employees are at different life stages, so have capacity for different things at different times in their lives. So it's really about offering quite a variety of learning opportunities. We worked with Matlodi and the team and other clients also, but if Matlodi, and you can come in here as well in terms of what we found, but we were able to really think about quite broadly what are various ways that employees would want to engage with learning, whether it be through knowledge sharing sessions that are quite informal and where we would give loose guidelines and encouragement, but it's really more about the encouragement to share knowledge across different functions, across areas where they might be interested in, to coaching, to mentoring opportunities, to reverse mentoring opportunities where we want to encourage our younger employees to also give inputs to our older employees that, you know, this is what I'm learning, this is what I might be able to share, to things like internal academies. We're busy with a future capability study in partnership with Northwest University amongst financial services organizations in South Africa. And that's been one of the key things coming out from that industry, is the importance of having internal academies that are intentionally growing these future capabilities. Even thinking about, for example, gamification, and how do we make it fun for learners to learn? How do we bring it into micro pieces, whether it's through an online learning library, etc. So I think it's really about, it's not that new. I think these are all initiatives that most organizations have dabbled in or have considered, but it's really about offering a variety so that employees can engage with learning in the way that suits them best. That's how we're going to get the most out of our employees. It's not, there's only one way to do design thinking, and it's, you have to go on this one-day course, and if you don't do that, then you're not going to get that skill. So it's about bringing in a personalized, self-directed opportunity for employees to learn in the way that they want to learn.
Yeah.
Matlodi, anything you want to add to it?
Yes, I'd like to. I wasn't sure whether I'd muted or unmuted Nadine, so that's why. Yeah, I agree with you completely, Lomé, and I think that's one of the discussions we've had previously also, is around just spending time understanding exactly, what the employees' aspirations are, their career goals. I think it's more than just equipping them to do their job and do it well and perform based on the goals that have been set. It's over and above that, just understanding exactly what their career goals are, and plugging into the variety of solutions that Lomé referred to, based on those identified needs. I think that is critical. I think also on the journey that we went on to, that's an approach that we certainly used. And we looked at things like even networking, to add to, the variety of the solutions. And finding that, just because somebody is in a leadership position or is an expert for so many years does not necessarily mean that they're very good at networking, And so it's identifying those things. And May mentioned something that we're testing for the first time, reverse mentoring. So very excited to get that going, so that there's an exchange from a mentorship perspective as well. But it's also about really connecting people to, experiential learning type opportunities. For example, secondments, rotations, job swaps, all centered around ensuring that the individual is fully developed based on the goals that they want to achieve, and ultimately what the organization will also achieve. So yeah, I just wanted to add that to what you mentioned, Lomé. I'm trying to remember something else here. No, that's it. Thanks, Nadine.
Great. It will come back to you just now, I'm sure. So just on that, thanks, Lumay and Mahlori. I think you explained to us very well why it's needed. But I want to ask you, Mahlori, maybe a follow-up. Once it's been identified how one can go about, how can we then coach line managers to be more attuned to these employee aspirations and how to identify business opportunities that could support these?
Thanks for that one, Nadine. I think the word that my brain is stuck on is attune. Such a beautiful word, is it not? Like attune for me means it's almost like you're stepping outside of yourself, you know, to, in my view, connect with another. I think that is one of the things that is critical from a line manager perspective, is just starting to influence that culture around, you know, ensuring that we have it's genuine, basic human connection, things like just being interested in your employee. And like I mentioned before, in seeing them more than just in terms of you here to ensure that we meet this performance goal. So engaging the individual holistically, and making sure that you keep in touch on a constant basis. I mean, I've been at Old Mutual for 7 years, and I'm one of those internal growth success stories. And one of the things that was critical for me is, because Lumay, you mentioned it earlier, I own my career, right, as an employee. And one of the things that worked is that, you know, because I own my career, having those important, critical, honest conversations with my manager, because I could always just in the conversation go, yeah, no, I'm good, etc. But if you're honest enough in terms of what your interests are, where you would like to exercise your strengths, that already opens up, you know, that doorway into the conversations that you need to have with your manager. The second point I want to make is around that, you know, we sometimes assume that leaders know. I've mentioned this before, just because you're in a management role, you fully understand exactly what it is that you need to do. So I think it's important that we also upskill our leaders, and then that we weave in the values that we want to drive as an organization, the leadership behaviors that we want to drive through our leaders as well, and utilizing that as a vehicle to start influencing that attunement to your employees. I mentioned upskilling, but also what's important and what worked very well for us as well is getting that executive sponsorship. That is critical, because, you know, your executives sort of drive the message around the fact that development is a priority in the organization and warrants the necessary investments, and they're leading from the front. And already with that sponsorship and the support, that already encourages you as an employee. So that's also one thing that I found worked for us. Another thing that I wanted to add is that, you know, making sure that the line managers have the necessary tools, guidelines. At least we did that. We made sure that we designed detailed guidelines, where do you start having the conversation? What sort of cadence is recommended, etc., for the line manager to start, and that's at their fingertips. Lumay mentioned it earlier, it's self-directed, so they can refer to it when required, and starting to also, you know, ensure that they equip themselves to have those necessary conversations with employees.
No, that's lovely. And I see Matt asked a question that I think is very relevant to what you just answered, Mahlori. So he's asking, how would you convince a CEO or president to commit to something like a competency framework, making it marketplace plausible? So when they see it as daunting and you know that it's going to be valuable, how do we get buy-in from someone like the CEO or president of the company?
Yeah. A very good question. And I'm just thinking back in terms of the conversations that we had to have with our executive team, right, to get their buy-in. I think what worked in our favor is the fact that the people agenda is top of mind for the organization. And it is also included in our strategy. And so already that is your hook. in terms of, having the conversation around what is required from them as executive leadership to really sponsor this, champion this, and drive this, is making that link to what we want to achieve strategically as an organization. How does that speak to the people strategy that you have and the people priorities, and how you can make that, pardon me, how you can make that come to life within the organization? What are the sort of things that we can do? What does it mean as an executive for you to be championing and driving this? And just around that concept of leading from the front as a leader.
Lovely. Jessica, did you want to add anything to that?
It's just really nice to hear from Matilda having gone through this, and I think those on the call today would really value knowing that other businesses are going through this today. And if I think about clients that we support, and I guess I'm sort of leading this conversation slightly more into the success of this sort of initiative, but it really comes down to, as well as not just sort of adoption metrics and we've moved from 50% to 55% and majority of those were our leaders or which part of population, but the storytelling. And I'm thinking about one of our banking organizations in Ireland, and we have a really sweet story where our stakeholder there usually has a person in the business he can count on and to sort of participate in these sorts of initiatives. And he hadn't heard from him for a few weeks. And when they got back in touch, this guy had said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I've been out of touch. I've actually changed roles in the business. I've been in retail banking for 22 years. And then I did the career reflection exercises, which was part of the Fuel 50 platform. And I just realized I wanted to be in a different part of the organization, and I've made the move." And when we tell that story, that's just one anecdotal story, but it's so powerful because everyone can connect to having that aha moment, feeling inspired by someone's bravery after 22 years. And so to Matilda's point, I feel that could be so powerful in our leader population when they see others in their peer group using a marketplace or becoming skills-based or changing the way they do things. And so telling stories we know is always so important, but especially important from a marketplace perspective as well.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Agree with
Can
that.
I just add to that, Nadine?
Yeah, sure.
To that point around the marketplace. This is happening to me the second time. I've got this thought and I'm like, yay! And the thought is okay, I'm going to backtrack.
Is it gone now? Do you know why? Let me just explain to the rest of the people on the call. It's because Mahlori loves languages. So I think she's going through all the languages in her mind now. That's why she greeted us all in the 10 different languages. So we're actually very jealous. So I think my brain will also do that if I knew so many languages.
Great. I'll come back to it, Nadine. Thank you.
Perfect. Lumay, I know you touched on something a bit earlier where you said that someone will be in one specific role, and then we realize now after these shifts that they might be suited in a complete different department or industry for that matter. So I would like to ask you, how do we measure employees' potential to succeed in various roles and responsibilities? And how do we use AI and data analytics then in that instance? How do you see this playing out in the organization currently?
Thanks, Nadine. Some lovely inputs from Jessica and Matlodi on the previous one as well. I completely agree. I think on this question, maybe not to harbor the point again, but I think the backbone of a good talent marketplace is really the skills taxonomy. That needs to be solid. If we have a really good understanding of what potential looks like for us, what is it that we are needing in the future? I think Matlodi also mentioned that it needs to make sense in terms of our business strategy. That's where we started with them and what we do with all of our clients. And I know Jessica and the team, that's also the starting place. And so if we understand where we're going, what we're needing, what we have in the business right now, and all of that needs to be grounded in some form of a framework, right? And so that's where the skills taxonomy really is the backbone. And then being able to apply AI and data analytics together with all of the other data pieces that come in. And so if we don't if we don't have comprehensive employee data filling in or coming into the talent marketplace, then that formula is really missing. Then it's just an internal job posting platform, right? Where the company is saying, this is what's available, you can apply, and it follows our traditional recruitment process. So the employee assessment piece or employee profiling piece is really the key here, I think, from a talent marketplace point of view, where employees are able to tell their stories, these are the skills that I have, these are the aspirations that I have, these are the personal interests that I have, perhaps including assessments, advanced assessments on some of these skills or competencies or capabilities, so that the employee can then say, this is me, this is what I am looking for, both for the system, but also for hiring managers who are looking for skilled individuals and engaged individuals who have the ambition to work in specific gigs or assignments, or then full-time or more long-term jobs. But I think that assessment piece is quite key. And then on a broader business front, to also to be able to assess, what do we have in the business? So I think this is also where, for our learning and development functions, it starts to become really important to understand, what do we have in the business? How does that compare to what we need? And what is the variance? And so therefore, what are the critical areas that we need to develop across the entire business, but also then possibly in pockets of the business? So that upfront assessment piece is absolutely critical. And I think the one thing that's important here, it needs to go further than it's quite tricky to assess skills and competence and capabilities. I think we've been trying to crack that nut as an industry for quite a while. And so we'll continue to do that with, assessments being modernized and really evolving. But I think what's quite important from a talent marketplace is to add additional information to that around aspirations, around personal interests, and that being the driving part to the other part of the conversation. This is what the business needs, but this is also what the employee is presenting.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that, Lemay. I definitely agree with that. And now, Jessica, maybe back to you on this one. Once the potential has been identified, how would you say one can then visualize and communicate clear paths for employees to entice them, and not just to stick around, but broaden their skills and drive personal development?
Yeah. I think I was sort of nodding furiously listening to Lemay there. I couldn't agree more on how important the relationship between having a strong skills foundation, and we sort of refer to it sometimes as an infrastructure. But to answer your question, Nadine, in terms of that personal development and bringing employees almost on that journey as well, there's that next layer, which, to Lemay's explanation around those different types of assessments around aspiration even, that's a big part that Fuel 50's we're so obsessively passionate about. Is our definition of potential is almost, what are the skills your people have, but what's their motivation? There's too many psychologists in this call to even probably count, and those are the psych background. So we've all probably heard that joke, how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer goes along the line, the light bulb wants to change themselves. And I think that, there's a lot in that with employees as well. You can put a great infrastructure in place. You can put career path transparency, and that's a huge uplift from what we've been in recent years. But unless the employee can connect that to them as an individual and their motivations and their life stage and their career stage and their personal goals and aspirations, all you have is another tool in the suite of things that you're offering employees. So adoption isn't just as simple as seeing the adoption of, great, people are using this platform. It's really making sure you're bringing it back to the employee at the center. I attended a conference, as I mentioned earlier this week in London, and it was all about inspiring workforces. And there was this theme across the speakers, and the theme that people kept using the same words was trust, connecting people, and being human. And like I had shivers listening to these clients, these organizations talk about these things. And, you know, my time in early days in HR, that was very altruistic and a little bit like a pat on the head, like, oh, yes, that's nice that you think that. That's not really how business is, though. You know, business is very impersonal and we're all about, you know, the number crunching, even in a HR organization. And so I'm really seeing that shift now where people are saying, well, it's about the humans we have. So as part of what we've seen at Fuel 50 with our clients, if you've got your infrastructure in place and you've got your skills, which allows you to trust the analytics that's going to come out of that, which is going to give the support to your C-suite and all those decision makers, that's all going to exist. And you do need that strong foundation. But your people, that's your magic. The people is the people that are giving you the unlocked talent, the hidden talent you didn't know you had. And for them to be able to find what's the right career move, is it a role change? Or is it staying with the role I'm in and picking up a gig as a side hustle, as some clients call it? Or is it giving back and mentoring because I'm approaching retirement age and I've got a lot to give? Is it taking a step back from maybe a frontline role into another role because someone's wanting a little bit less stress in their life because they want to take some time off and spend more time with their grandkids or young children? Whatever all those factors mean, we're seeing all this accumulating together, and it's all common sense and it's all really obvious. However, it couldn't be more important now because that's the link into the personal development that the individuals will make in that strong foundation that you're offering.
No, lovely. I definitely agree with that, Jessica. And I think we can all agree. We've seen this in the industry, especially after COVID, where people are realizing that actually my personal development is an important factor. So if organizations aren't taking that into account, then there will be consequences. People are not shying away to be open and honest about it in the new world of work post-COVID. So that was lovely. Thank you. I think what we all are burning to hear, if it's just me, I'm sure it's my colleagues on the call as well. Maybe from a short piece from all of you, that would be great, just to hear what actionable strategies can we now deploy to implement talent marketplaces in organizations? So what needs to be in place to ensure that it will be successful? Maybe Machlori, we'll start with you and go from there.
Just unmuting, you and I, telepathic.
I'm telling you. Great.
Yeah, so thanks for that, Nadine. So I think one of the things that are, three things for me that are top of mind. One of them is data. I think I come from, just in terms of my experience and in financial services for the many years, I can certainly attest to having different versions of one document or a population within an organization. And so having a central place where all people data sit and it is accurate. Jessica, you mentioned that whole garbage in, garbage out. That is not ideal. And that sounds like something maybe basic, but that is something that's big, at least in my experience and in our world. Just having one central place where you have data that is accurate already starts to allow you to do the necessary analytics that you need to. I think, Lome, you mentioned, you already answered this question, I think, when you started with your intro, Lome, hey? So around just the skills taxonomy and having clarity on that. And we also busy with a piece of work to review that, and job architecture as your basis in terms of how you define jobs and roles, you know, kind of, those are, for me, the basics that need to be in place. I don't know, Lome, Jessica?
Yeah, I really agree. To answer that in a slightly different way, because I completely agree with you from that sort of organizational wide perspective, some of the things that we see with our clients, and I don't know, those of you on the call, you might be the budget holder or the decision maker. Quite often people that are passionate about this cause may not be those, and so they need to bring other stakeholders along the journey. And so my sort of tactical strategy, I suppose, might be two different examples. Number one, we're seeing a trend as well around, especially the rewards and compensation teams, and around the paying for skills. So this idea of, can we move to a pay for skills structure? So that's a finance driven approach, but how can they do that without the support of the talent management team or the learning team who generally had that responsibility for skills, but then that ties in with job architecture. And what we've seen a recent trend this year is organizations realizing that they needed every organizational business line to come together for this mission, because they all are starting to talk to one another. So that's a big project. And for some clients, maybe that's not possible right now. So if you can scale it back and even just pilot in one part of the business with that permission and approval and support from all those key stakeholders, learn and test within your own environment the data that you'll get by setting it up in a really nice way and maybe rolling it out more broadly. Because for some organizations, going to the big bang approach right now might still be a couple of years away for various reasons. So if you have the ability to scale it back and trial it with one part of your population, that might be better than not doing anything right now.
Lovely.
Yeah, for sure. I think the iterative approach makes a lot of sense, because to implement a talent marketplace is not, to get the technology, I think, is probably the easiest part, right?
Yeah.
I mean, barring a lot of system integration and, back and forth and project teams, etc. But I think, Jessica, what you're saying is it needs to come into an ecosystem that is actually ready for the conversation around what the talent marketplace will mean. There's a lot to consider. How, as you say, how will we pay people to do gig work? How will we define promotion opportunities with all of these different shifts coming into play? How will performance management work if I'm on two, I've got a side hustle and my main job title and maybe two managers? And so there's a lot to think about. And having said that, I don't think we have to figure it all out all at once. The need is there, and I think the pros well outweigh the cons, but it is about starting in the place that makes sense for your business right now, whether it be testing and experimenting within a function or implementing certain parts of the philosophy around talent marketplace. I think really think about what can our ecosystem manage right now, and how do we experiment and push the envelope in moving towards skills-based, moving towards open opportunities, moving towards data analytics, driving and empowering our employees to make some of those shifts. I think another thing for me is also important to start off with the goal and the purpose of the talent marketplace process, platform, whatever you want to call it, and really think about, why would you be doing this? What is it that the business wants to get out of it? Because I think that was one of the questions that was also posed, I think, in the chat. How do we convince, how do we influence, how do we ensure that the stakeholders in the room are taking this serious? And I think it's really about, well, let's be quite specific in how it's going to help us achieve what we want to achieve. If it's around building cross-functional skill, well, then that should be the goal for how we implement. If it's around leveraging the skills of our existing employees, well, then that would be the main driver. Or enabling, I think this was a big one in COVID, we have a lot of talent that needs to be reassigned. And so there's a huge gap there, and that would be the focus. So really tap into what is the purpose, what is the goal. And then I think maybe just the last point for me is really around and this is again, it's not new information, right? I think all of us on the call, we know this, but really being very focused on proper change management and facilitating the adoption. Fuel 50 is an amazing product, amazing software, but if the pre-work and the grunt work isn't done properly in terms of getting line managers on board, getting the right sponsors, engaging with stakeholders to build the vision for what this could be, and then consistently having good communication campaigns and culture initiatives to support it, it could be just one of those initiatives that sits on the sidelines, as many of us have experienced with big technology implementation. So I think it's still important. It will forever remain important. The onboarding, the adoption part, that's super, super important. And then I think together with that, really training our leaders. We need to drive it through our leaders. It's not through HR. HR is really the subject matter expert in terms of the technology and the methodology, etc. But in terms of the operational implementation, it needs to happen through our line managers. So how do we really partner with the business? They're the ones who hoard talent and go against what the talent marketplace is all about. So how do we support our managers? How do we create awareness? How do we link it to how they could benefit from it, linking to their frustrations and their challenges, and perhaps even rewarding those that are partnering and not hoarding talent? How do we really make that something that's important to the business? If you are doing this, we will reward you as a manager. If you are hoarding talent, we are not going to celebrate that. So working through line managers, I think, is absolutely critical as well for success.
No, I completely agree with you there, Lumay. So thank you for that. I think we're all sitting here with big smiles, because I think we've seen it in the industry. So I think, Jessica, you mentioned it to say that it's nice to hear that we're not the only ones, and to hear what others in the industry are doing. So that's lovely. Before I open up the floor for some questions from my colleagues on the call, I just wanted to hear from the panel, is there anything else that you would want to add with regards to talent marketplaces, internal mobility, or talent affiliation that you feel might be important on the call and that you'd like to mention?
I can just share one final thought in that those of you that have implemented platforms or widespread initiatives in the organization in HR, typically they've always had a little bit of a compliance undertone. We need you to complete this by this date because this review is critical to happen. It's not really been fun for employees. Whereas a marketplace, I can genuinely say, is probably the most funnest, and that's not a grammatically correct sentence, initiative that you could likely implement. So have some fun with it, like break the mold, get your change and comms teams involved. It can go beyond the posters on the wall. It can be away days. It can be not so much, the gimmicky aspect, but it can really have that gamified aspect. And that's what a lot of our clients have said to us, is that it's been really joyful to do a project like this, because the employee feedback is unlike anything else that people have received. Just a couple of anecdotes to give that a bit of color. Some of our clients have received feedback to say, this is more important to me than wage or bonus across the year, or you wouldn't have had my resignation 3 weeks ago if this was in place. And there's copious amounts of that. So anyone that's thinking about going on this journey, look forward to it, because there's fun to be had.
No, definitely, Jessica. And maybe on that note, just for some of my colleagues on the call that's not sure what Feel 50 is all about, I thought, let me give you a minute or two just to explain what you do in the company and what the company is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of the introduction, in terms of where I fit in, I'm an organizational psychologist working as a solution consultant to help clients really bring to life the marketplace within the organization. And so Lumay did a beautiful job of explaining what a marketplace can consist of. And so that's what Feel 50 provides. A one-stop shop. We sometimes use the phrase a digital front door. That means you don't have to rip and replace what you already have in your business, but rather putting an employee front end on the good work you've already done and really uplifting that through that AI and that scalability, so that employees have their dedicated place where they can find mentors or have career paths recommended to them. They can be connected in with their skills and ask for feedback. And the approach Feel 50 takes, because we're not the only one in this market anymore, that used to be the case pre-pandemic, and now everybody offers a marketplace. But the approach we take is to be incredibly thoughtful around the psychological principles as to why we do what we do. And also that shows up in little ways. So for example, every activity employees participate in around their career reflection and their life stage and their career stage and the skills they've received and the feedback that they get on those skills, they can choose the privacy setting, whether they want to keep that private to themselves, where they're sort of thinking that through, if they want to share that with their leader or with their coach or their mentor, or if they're really happy to share that across the business more broadly, which you might find is really popular in some of the up and coming generations within the workplace. So that's just a small example in terms of the Feel 50 approach to a marketplace, is that we really consider the small details for employees to make the most of all of those initiatives. So thank you, Nadine, for that opportunity to share that.
Great, thank you. Thanks for clarifying. Okay, if there's nothing else from the panel member side, thank you so much. It was extremely insightful. We did plan it to have a bit of time left for some questions at the end. So I want to ask my colleagues on the call, if there's anyone with any questions, you can either raise your hand and we'll take the question, or even type it in the text box and we can take it from there. Maybe they're also not remembering what they want to ask Mahlodi and say.
I remembered something, Nadine, I'll have you know.
Sure.
I wanted to make a point around talent marketplace and talent mobility breaks silos. So that's also something that's been a pain point for organizations, right? We go through this where it's like we siloed, we need to break the silos, but then we all revert back to our little, quarters and our teams, and we focus on the deliverables in those specific teams. But I find that talent marketplace, it breaks that, because now it is an entire marketplace of the entire organization, not limited to my team, that I have access to, and I can apply whatever skills or share knowledge across the organization. It's not just limited to my team. So that's a point that I wanted to make. And secondly, Lomé and Jess, spoke a lot and gave very valuable sort of practical steps that you can put in place to get this going in your organization. And it's fantastic. It's fantastic to have a platform and a tool that enables it and makes it easy for you. But something that I do want to highlight is that for me, we need to spend time in terms of influencing the culture. Lomé referred to it around boarding employees, and how do we start, kind of making shifts where that is concerned, because you could have perfect processes in place, a perfect tool, but if I still, kind of believe in hoarding talent, that also becomes a barrier to this being successful. So,
okay. No, lovely. I'm glad you remembered that. Thanks for adding that.
Nadine, maybe just to add what Mahlodi was saying, I also remember something that was triggered earlier. I think that a lot of us are focusing on succession planning and preparing for those future, risks and retention risks and retirement risks, etc. And for many clients, by the time that we have identified who those successors are, and we have all of the data, and we have all of the information in terms of readiness, etc., there has either been shifts in the role that we're looking at, or those individuals have left, or there's so many changes coming in that succession planning is becoming really difficult, and especially if it is very role focused, because there's this notion of you have to go through this route because that's the route that all of the people in that position have gone through. And so the move towards a skills base where it almost tops or throws succession planning on its head, where it's not about who is ready for that role, how many years until they will be ready, because this is the only way that they can be ready, and rather breaking it up into the smaller pieces of these are the skills that we would need in whatever department it might be. And it could potentially even be the 3 people fulfill that opportunity within the different skills, who knows? But it's really about breaking it into the core pieces of what we are looking for, and whether that is in the same role or job as we know it, whether it is in the same career trajectory that person is entering into what the business is needing, might look very different. We wouldn't know. I think that's the one thing that COVID also showed us. There are so many changes that we need to be flexible. We need to be agile in the way that we look at succession planning. So that's also maybe just another actionable thing to start thinking about our philosophy around succession planning, and starting to educate our managers and our leaders also in terms of how do we define successes? What does that look like? Can we be really flexible in the way that we manage it, in the way that we see it? Because if it is quite linear in the way that we drive it, we won't be quick enough. We won't get to having successes ready, and maybe even ready. You know, what does ready mean? I think even that, preparing our managers to think about what does ready mean, and how do we, through these opportunities, provide experiments to test if someone is ready. And maybe there's a particular skill where there's readiness and not complete readiness, but we're not going to keep them out of exploring some of those opportunities just because the traditional trajectory required it. So a lot of flexibility that's required, and again, breaking it up into the smaller pieces, aka skills or capabilities, so that we can plug and play at a lot at speed, so that the pace is quicker, but also in ways that we never thought of perhaps before.
Yeah, no, definitely agree with that. Thanks, Lemay. And I like the word agile that you use there, because I think this is coming into play more evidently now than we've seen in the industry. So thanks for that share. I'm just going to give another second to just see if there's anyone now that prompted. It feels like we're on a we steek mekaar aan in Afrikaans, we would say. So we are, once someone's popping something up, another idea comes up. So did we spark any ideas or any questions from anyone? Just want to see if there's any questions. Okay, doesn't seem like it. Okay, great. So once again, thank you so much, panel members, for your time, for your insights. It was so valuable and insightful for all my colleagues on the call. I think, yes, it was posted in the chat. If anyone wanted to find out more information about Field 50 or Yellow Seed for that matter, you're more than welcome to book a time slot with Shalon to take you through the possibilities and the products that we have. But from our side, thank you so much for joining. It was lovely having you all here, and thank you for an insightful session.